Hey, what's up, YouTube? Thanks so much for being on the show. We're going to actually have a really fun episode today. Changing it up a little bit. Instead of me just talking to you about a financial concept or something, I brought on a good buddy of mine his name is the Side Hustle Samurai. As you know, on my show, we love to help people manage, protect, and grow their money. We think it's important to learn how to live within your means and then grow your means. And turning income into wealth is critical so that you can grow your massive bank account. However, I also recommend that you find some way to make more money. Once you've learned to discipline your income, you've got to find a way to make more money. And my good friend Bart Merrill, who is coined the Side Hustle Samurai, is been somebody who's been an entrepreneur his whole life. He's got the get up and go. He's got the grit. He's, as he says, he's never had a real job. So Bart, let's have a conversation about the most effective and efficient ways to make more money in today's economy with inflation the way it's going, with all the different things that are happening in the economy, with the stock market up and down and all around. There's a lot of fear in the world right now, I think, and I feel like there's a lot of people that there's a lot of opportunities that are out there. You see a lot of social media saying, "Oh, come here, make money with this." There's all these different prepackaged businesses that people can just join and just go for it. So I kind of want to start with maybe just a kind of an idea of the difference between a prepackaged business that you can just join versus you're really teaching people how to take the skill sets that they already have, the talents that they already have, the hobbies that they already enjoy, and monetize those in a way that's actually going to produce a significant income. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's different about me is I don't have an agenda on the back end to sign you up in XYZ network marketing company or have you sell XYZ course to make money. I am telling people that they need to create financial security by monetizing the things that they already know and do.
And that's
And so I
powerful.
help I take people through a process and help them just figure out some things that they already have in them and teach them how to turn that into a stream of income. And as we go through things, I'll share several examples that, I mean, I started my first side hustle at age 15. I loved music, not being like singing or playing an instrument. I did do that as well,
Hmm.
but I just loved listening to music.
Mm.
And I bought my first stereo at age 11. When I got my driver's license at 15, actually that stereo turned into a liability. I think you'll understand this because
Hmm.
every time we went to town, I had to go buy the new tunes. And for an 11-year-old kid, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And when I turned 15 and got my driver's license, I started a mobile disco unit to go do dances and stuff for people.
So you were a
But in my
DJ?
small podunk town, yeah, I was a DJ. In my small podunk town, nobody was hiring.
Hmm.
And so I had to create my own opportunity. So after football games on the weekends, I would rent the community center, hire an off duty cop for security. Mom and dad took money at the door. I spun records. Everybody had a great time.
That is so cool. And you were 15.
And I was
So
15.
you've got some, I think there's a lot of people that might think that you're born with that kind of thing. So what would you say to the people that aren't, well, let's talk to both people, but first let's talk to the folks who think, man, that's so cool that he can do that. I don't believe I have anything like that in me. What do you tell people that believe that they don't have they don't have the gene, the entrepreneurial gene, so to speak?
I mean, that's a great question. I didn't necessarily have the entrepreneurial gene. I had an entrepreneurial dad.
Mm.
He was a pig farmer in southern New Mexico, but he had his hands in many different businesses, usually around the agricultural industry. He was part owner in a dairy up in Idaho, clear across the country.
Hmm.
He was part owner in a mushroom warehouse in Fillmore, Utah. He
Wow.
was part owner in a produce warehouse in Arizona, and he just had his hands in everything, many
Hmm.
different opportunities. And so it was watching him as I grew up he didn't necessarily sit me down and teach me the birds and the bees of business. He just was a great example, and he encouraged me and helped me along the way.
That's
And so
awesome.
it was kind of funny. I was volunteering at a drug rehab center in Salt Lake doing a speaking training, helping them. We did a little speaking club in this inpatient recovery center.
Hmm.
And I was sitting in the audience listening to one of the residents speak, and she was talking about how when she was growing up, she thought everybody else was living the same way, because
Wow.
when her and her family were out in public, they were somewhat normal.
Hmm.
When they got back in the house, that's when the abuse, the neglect, and everything happened.
Hmm.
And so she thought everybody else was doing the same thing until she went to college. And I was sitting there thinking, when it comes to business, it's the same way.
Wow,
If
that's
you didn't
true.
grow up with my dad or a dad like my dad, you don't think like I do.
Mm-mm. Hmm.
And so that's when I decided I got to share my message. I got to help people. And I wrote a book. It's right here on my desk. So I'll show it to you. Monetize your mindset. Create financial security by monetizing what you already know and do.
Awesome. Make sure you share with us where to get that book at the
I
some
will.
point.
Yeah, it's on my website, bartmerrill.com, or you can get it on Amazon as well. Don't care which way you go. Either way is great.
Awesome.
But it just hit me that our surroundings, and it's probably the same thing with what you do with how people use money, because
Hmm.
I have friends that spend money like crazy and then they find themselves in trouble
Yeah. Yeah.
when
Being
they'll
having a poor mindset doesn't necessarily mean you have no money. It means sometimes you can have a poor mindset with a great income. You're just, you make 100,000 and you spend 100,000. You're not, you're still poor, but you're making
Yep.
six figures. And
Yep.
so that's a great point. I appreciate that you said that, a lot of people, like my kids, they grew up in my entrepreneurial house, and my son, he's tried to get a job and he's not really ever been successful. He's like, Dad, I want the freedom that you have, that to be able to do things and still make money. I'm like, well, you got to find a position that's either going to let you have that autonomy, or you got to be an entrepreneur. And he's working, he found something that's really going well for him. It's kind of a mixture of both. But my daughter, she wants to be a school teacher, and my other daughter, she's an entrepreneur already. She's got a nail business and a tattoo business, and who knows what the rest of the kids will do. But it's kind of fun to see how they kind of grow and watch them grow. And I think that's a great point. If you didn't grow up in a house, or you didn't you didn't have a friend that modeled that entrepreneurial spirit, it's probably harder for you to believe that you could do it yourself. Is that right?
And so you need a mentor. You need
Hmm.
someone to help you get that spirit, to get that knowledge, to learn the things that you need to learn to be an entrepreneur, because you're going to make mistakes. I mean, I've made mistakes often. And
Hmm.
so you're going to be able to learn through your mentor's mistakes. And if you don't have a mentor, you need one. I mean, I have mentors to help me go through, get to the next level of life that I want to be at. And I'm sure you do as well. In fact, I
Yeah.
know you do because we have one in
We,
common.
we have one of the same mentors. I think that's critical. That's a huge insight key to success right there. I don't know of anybody that's achieved great success, whatever they define that as, without having a mentor or somebody that can help guide them along the way. I think if you want to build wealth, if you want to build a great business, build a real estate portfolio, whatever you want to do, find somebody that's already doing it. And if you, even if it's just having a great family, a great marriage, find somebody that's doing that, what you want, and then just
Right.
ask them to mentor you and help you. And a lot of times people will do it. If sometimes people will do it for just the love of mentoring. But even if you have to pay a few dollars, I think that's good, because paying money is going to put skin in the game. It's going to give you that, what, I better do this because I've got some, I've invested some money into this. And so you get a lot more out of it. I think that's great. So,
Well, and some
go ahead.
mentors may not even know they're your mentors.
Right?
because they're just you look them up on YouTube. I have a few people that I follow that I love the advice they give. I mean, I can name a few: Gary V, Gary Vaynerchuk, Ed Milet, Pat
Hmm.
Flynn. There's just a number of people that whether it's reading their books or whether it's listening to their YouTube channels like you. I mean, I listen to your YouTube channels as well because I told you earlier, my dad used to tell me I had a champagne taste and a beer budget. And so I listened to you to help bridle my spending habits.
That's awesome.
And
That's
so
awesome.
there's going to be people that don't even know that they're your mentor, that you didn't pay, you just paid attention to. Sometimes when you pay a mentor, you're going to get everything structured and everything in one place rather than having to go look up things on YouTube, and then you get the section instead of the whole picture.
Yes, it definitely having a mentor accelerates the learning curve. It totally can accelerate the learning curve.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing right now? I know with the economy the way it is, what are some great what are some ways, well, I think the way you approach it is that you just reach into somebody's personal life and habits and skills and you help them develop it. So it's a very personalized road for each of your clients. Is that how that works?
I mean, so we ask the same questions, but then it takes us down different people or different paths. And I'm just, I'm not giving them anything that they don't already know in their head. I'm just helping them discover it. So we look
Mm.
at, what do you like to do? What do you need to do? What are you already doing?
Hmm.
Can you monetize one, two, even three of those things to have multiple streams of income? I think everybody needs multiple streams of income. If you are a W-2 employee and you don't have a side hustle, you're missing out on tax benefits and you're missing out on security, because what if your job goes away?
Well, and right now that's happening huge. There's been several of the major firms, major Fortune 500s that are offloading tens of thousands of employees right now. And so having a side hustle, I think, is so much more important than ever.
Well, and
And
even me having a business,
mhm.
I have several different income streams, but as you know, your audience doesn't know probably that I had to have my left leg amputated below the knee last year,
Wow.
and it was a shock. And
Hmm.
even though I had multiple streams of income, so my main stream of income was dog training,
Hmm.
and it's you think about trying to train dogs with a leg missing, and
There's
so,
there might be some jokes you can provide with that kind of a.
and so my I was scared of losing my leg. I was scared of what it was going to feel like. It was walking through the hospital doors that morning to get my leg cut off was the most terrifying thing I've ever done.
Wow.
And I've done some pretty stupid, scary stuff because I'm an adrenaline junkie.
Hmm.
But this was the most terrifying thing I've ever done. That being said, right up there next to that was, what am I going to do for money? How long until I get back on my feet? I
Hmm.
mean, my foot, because one foot's going to be
Yeah,
gone.
that's the jokes are already starting. There we go.
and and so I was worried about my income, but having multiple streams coming in helped relieve some of that pressure.
100%. That's awesome.
And my goal was to get back to training dogs in 4 months. If I was able to do that, then I was, with my emergency fund and everything, I was good to go.
Hmm.
I actually did it in about 3.5 months. I got back to training dogs.
Nice.
And and so even as an entrepreneur, things happened. I saw a video on YouTube the other day about someone who sells stuff on wherever she sells it. I don't know if it was Etsy or whatever, but a lot of it was stuff that she brought in from China.
Hmm.
And because of the tariffs, it was going to cost her twice as much as she expected. And she was crying about that or complaining about that. And I was just like, well, as an entrepreneur, you have to be prepared for those types of things. I'm sure this is something that you teach about an emergency fund and
Hmm.
just being prepared for when I call it what happens when what happens happens, when life happens.
That's a great quote. I love that.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Because we all know life happens in one way or another.
Hmm.
And so
And
you
that's all
just
the
got to
more
be
reason.
prepared.
That's all the more reason to, one, have multiple streams of income, and two, when you have that income, you're turning it into wealth so that you have a nice reservoir of cash available to you to weather through those storms. Because, like you, I mean, I'm sure you were going through life, absolutely having your best life, and then all of a sudden, wait, what? I got to have my leg cut off. I remember we don't have time for the whole story, but it's quite the story. I hope you share it on your YouTube channel. And I hope you also share with us your YouTube channel on the show so people can go subscribe and watch your stuff because you just never know what life is going to throw at you. Like you said,
Yeah.
what happens when what happens happens, or I don't know if I said that right, but
Yeah, you
I
did.
love that
Perfect.
because it's life comes at you and Murphy and his laws or whatever you want to call it. Um, it just happens regular enough in my life that I'm like, you know what? Let's have a nice, modest lifestyle. Let's discipline our spending. Let's put a bunch of money in this in our in our massive bank accounts, in our safes, in our savings accounts, and then let's go make more money. Because that's always I think making more money answers a lot of questions, and there's a lot of people right now that are like, well, how? How do I make more money? And you listen
Yeah.
to these young entrepreneurs, in their 20s, they're like, I made $15 million last month or some ridiculous, you think, man, there's no way I can do it. How do they do that? They do the e-commerce and they do all these other things. So let's imagine that you've got somebody in front of you and they're like, Bart, I need to make more money. What would you tell them? What would you kind of guide them? What would be some first steps people could take to really, I know it's important to figure out what to do. And then once you know what to do mentally, kind of emotionally, you're kind of ready to go. Maybe you can also talk to like, what are some first steps to actually physically start the business? And do we need an LLC? Do we need a sole proprietorship? Do we need to, what are some marketing? Like, do you have any of those tips too?
So first of all, we got to figure it out. So you got to make a list of what do you like to do. And as you're making these lists, don't think about can you turn it into an income stream. Just make this list.
Hmm.
Just a brain dump on paper. What do you like to do? What do you need to do? What are you already doing? What would you like to learn? What do you need to learn? What have you already learned that you could teach someone else? So there's 6 lists there now that I've given you.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and then as you make these lists, okay, this is something that just happens naturally for me. I don't have to make a list. Anything that comes into my life, good, bad, or indifferent, I will always think, can I turn that into a stream of income?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I do it all the time. I mean, okay, so I had 6 months between finding out I was going to have my leg chopped off and actually getting my leg chopped off.
Hmm.
Once the shock and awe was over, I'm thinking, how can I turn that into a stream of income? I didn't want my leg chopped off,
Hmm.
but it was going to happen. And so I am actively in my brain. Most people are thinking, oh, this is going to kill me. This is devastating. And it is. It is devastating. It's bad. But I'm thinking, okay, this is going to happen. How can I turn it into a stream of income? Now, this
Hmm.
would fall under things you need to do
Yeah.
because I didn't want to do it, but it's something that I needed to do. Um, and within 6 months post-op, I had contracted with my prosthetist to talk to people who are going to go through what I went through and help counsel them through the process. And then I also do some marketing on the side for him because being a businessman, I know how to market.
That
And
is
so
so cool.
so if I hadn't have been thinking about that, if I hadn't have been thinking about that, I wouldn't have been able to have the conversation with the prostatist when the opportunity happened.
Yeah. And you got to have a certain personality to be willing to reach out and say, hey, let's see if this idea will even work. And I love what you said earlier about what can you learn to do? I think there's a lot of people that think, well, I was trained for this and that's just I was born in this condition and that's just what I'm going to be for the rest of my existence. And that's not true in my opinion. I mean, of course, I'm not going to be able to slam a basketball or dunk a basketball on a 10-foot whatever because I'm not tall enough. But so there's some things that you need to consider. But if another human being can do it, so can me, so can I. And I believe that at least in business, in learning a skill or developing a skill. I may have a predisposition towards certain things or learning certain things, which is fine. But if another human being can learn it, it can be learned by a human being. And me being a human being, I can learn it and I can do it. So I see people doing great, like all kinds of businesses. There's so many business ideas out there. And I love the entrepreneurial spirit that Americans have and traditionally Americans have, and other countries have it too. But if you see somebody doing something, making money, and you might find a need or a niche or some kind of way to make it even better, you can do that too, and you can make money doing that too. And I think that's awesome that you turned a negative experience of your leg being cut off into an opportunity, and not just an opportunity for you to make money. And some people are like, wow, he's greedy, he just wants to make money. Like, think about the psychological help and counseling you gave to people. Like, you literally went through that and now you're helping other people through it. So that's a genuine service, in my opinion.
Well, and the thing about it is it doesn't cost them. My
Hmm.
prostatist pays me, and he gets money from insurance to cover things, and plus they pay him for their leg. So it's an added
It's a
bonus
win-win.
for him. So it's a bonus for him, an add-on luxury, if you want to call it that, because when I was going through it, I wanted to talk to anybody that would talk to me and give
Yeah.
me advice. And I also went down the YouTube rabbit hole looking for answers to what's going to happen, how's it going to feel, is it going to
Hmm.
hurt, what am I going to have to do to change my life. I was
Hmm.
going down the YouTube rabbit hole. Why not get it from someone that you know and trust?
100%. Love that.
And once again about it, let's go to your basketball example. I know a guy that is probably 6'6", 6'8", somewhere in that range. He
Hmm.
probably weighs about 500 pounds. And I'm not exaggerating by
Wow.
much. And you wouldn't think of him as a basketball coach, but he was working with high school kids as a side hustle, teaching them to shoot and teaching them things to do because he played basketball in his high school years before he put on a lot of weight. And so this comes from not, this isn't my information as far as what I'm going to tell you next. It comes from a friend of mine, Dr. Paul Jenkins. He's the positivity psychologist,
Hmm.
but he says to a first grader, a third grader is a mentor. They
That's
look up
true.
to a third grader, a sixth grader. And so there's different levels. My guy probably couldn't go coach the NBA or even college, but he can work with, you know, junior high and high school students to help them improve their game. And so no
That's
matter
awesome.
what level you are at, there is someone that you are a good mentor for. And so
That's
don't
legit.
think about, oh, I'm not good enough.
Hmm. That you can be what's the saying is that if you're one chapter ahead in the book, you can help the guy who's a chapter behind.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, yep, of course, that's a metaphor for life. And all you have to do is just be a little bit further down the road, a little bit further in, and you can be a great a mentor for somebody. That's
And so
cool.
as you're putting these lists together,
Hmm.
you need to not think so close-minded, I guess. Just
Hmm.
write this list. Don't say, okay, I'm not good enough, I can't do this. Just make your list and then refine it later.
Yes.
But as you're making these lists, you're gonna have ideas pop into your head. And And if you need some help getting started, I do have a list of the 25 successful side hustles for 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And you can
Nice.
find that at the link is offer1.bartmerrill.com/25 for 25. Or you can go to my website, bartmerrill.com, and there's going to be a link there that you can click on to download that list of 25 successful side hustles for 2025. And
Um,
then I just launched the Side Hustle Samurai YouTube channel that you can also find good tips and tricks. You talked about ideas for taxes and stuff like that, or do you need to have a LLC, or do you need to just do it a sole proprietor? These
mm-hmm.
are going to be things that I go through on my Side Hustle Samurai YouTube channel. It's Bart Merrill, the Side Hustle Samurai YouTube channel. And so
Awesome.
go click on that and follow, see if there's anything that you need there. I just started it, so we're just rolling out the videos now.
You'll get you everybody be getting in on the ground floor of the Bart Merrill Side Hustle Samurai show. That's awesome.
But anyway, so you just need to have ideas. You need to have ideas. You need options.
Yeah.
And making these lists are going to put that together. And then once you get these lists, you're going to ask two questions because you're going to make two more lists. One
Okay.
is, what do I like the best out of these lists?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to make a list. You're going to take all those 6 lists and you're going to go through those lists and you're going to put them in order, what you like to do the most. And then you're going to have another one. And this is where you're going to start thinking about, can I do this as a side hustle? Can I turn it into money?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to think about, how long will it take? What resources will I need? Time, money. What do I need to get this started and get it off the ground? And you're going to put them in order. And you're going to have to do some research on this list because you need to figure out, okay, what's it going to take to
Mm-hmm.
do this? I was helping a friend of mine through this process, and they opened up a trucking company. Now, obviously, that takes a lot of resources when it
Yeah.
comes to money and time and preparedness. And she had a whole list of what it's going to take her to function for the first year. And then it had a whole list of what she's going to be able to make in that first year. And then she was able to balance that budget and come up with, what her net income was going to be. So that took a lot of research and took time of her figuring it out.
Uh-huh. That's awesome.
And it's in an industry that they've been in for several years as employees. Now they're going to be the owner.
I
And
think
so
that's
it's just,
huge because a lot of people, like, for example, I know a lot of skilled laborers, plumbers, electricians, handyman, they'll get in, they're very good at the work and they'll get into thinking they can start a business and they'll go start doing it and they'll realize that they aren't good at marketing, they aren't good at receivables, they aren't good at following up with clients to make sure that they paid. They're good at the work. And so
yeah,
there's a whole nother side of business that's important to realize and to have somebody mentor you on, because if you just jump into business as a self-employed person thinking you're just going to hang your sign on the door and the people are going to show up, and or that you're going to be successful, that's, you got another thing coming, because
yeah,
there's a lot more to it. Now that is a key element because you found your niche, you found what you're going to do. So that's a huge step in the right direction, but don't stop there. Recognize that you need to learn marketing, you need to learn how to balance the books, you need to make sure that you're profitable. Like you might think, well, hey, I can do this for this much money, and you realize you're barely making enough to pay the bills when you should be charging more. So there's a
yeah,
lot of that goes into starting your own business like that. I love, for somebody who's got an entrepreneurial spirit and wants to start something uh, that they can start on their own from scratch. You're going to find that that ownership is going to be way more effective than buying maybe a cookie cutter business. Because even Like I shared with you a story of a gentleman earlier today, right before the call, or right before we started recording, about a guy who is in multi-level marketing. And I agree. I like multi-level marketing when there's some conditions under which it's appropriate. And if you follow those conditions, you can have a great opportunity. But this guy joined, made millions of dollars a year, and just was spending it all. And he was just spending, 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 and didn't manage it. Ended up, the company went out. Something happened. I can't remember what the story was. Something happened with the company, and he ended up losing his income. He had nothing in savings, so he ended up being completely homeless. So one of the things that I think is important about recognizing if you're going to do one of these a business in a box, or however you want to call it, where you just join and they have it all ready for you, is just realize that if somebody else is running it, there's still a little bit of that's not in your control.
Yep.
And if you're okay with that, join the company and run. But if you're like, you know what, I'm a little bit more, I want to have control of this. I want to do this all myself. Then you want to build a business that's all your own, that you can call all the shots. And there's a little bit of risk because it's not been proven. A lot of the reasons why people jump in these business in a boxes is because the results are already, it's a proven system that works. So there's some definite wisdom in that. Bart, what are some last minute thoughts and feelings, or maybe ideas or any wisdom that you want to share before we close out?
Well, let's close it out with just some ideas of people that I have either worked with or I know some of the side hustles they've done. Let's start if you want to call it the memory jogger process.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go with things you like to do. So I shared one that I liked music, so I did it, started a mobile DJ business. Output of money was minimum, especially back when I was that young,
Mm-hmm.
back when I was 15, and the risk was minimum. You have the company, the trucking company that I just talked about. The cost to get started was tens of thousands of dollars, and the risk is quite is relevant because they have to keep that truck running in order to make money. And
Yep.
if it breaks down, or if they can't, their driver gets sick or whatever happens,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of risk there. Two things of that. That's two things that they like to do. Okay, let's go. What you need to do. I monetized my leg. When my wife decided that it was time for me to lose weight, I joined a network marketing company that was a weight loss company, and I made money fairly quickly with a minimum output. So my output of money was very low. My risk was very low.
Nice.
Then we have, let's see, things that you're already doing. This can kind of go in things you're already doing and things that you like to do. There was a company called Jamberry. Jamberry is a nail wrap company that makes their nails pretty. And this was in 2010. This pair of sisters would go in to the salon, get their nails done, 50, $60 a pop at the time. Quite
Mm-hmm.
expensive.
Yeah.
They were walking out. One of them said to the other, I wonder if we could do these at home for cheaper. And with that one question, that turned into a multi-million-dollar deal. They
Wow.
Jamberry was born. 5 years later, they sold 50% of the company for a multi-million-dollar deal.
That's awesome.
Just off of that one question. Another thing, you have to have a place to live. You're already living somewhere. Well, I have always lived where I've rented out a portion of my home. When I bought my first house just out of college, I took the room that I wanted, which was the best room,
Mm-hmm.
and I rented out the others, and it paid my mortgage and then some.
That's awesome. House hacking
Then
is legit.
then when I got married, we rented out the basement, and me and my wife lived upstairs. More than half of my mortgage was paid. Then when I moved to the new home where I live now, I I purposely looked for a home with an accessory apartment. And my
Mm.
tenants that currently rent for me pay for more than half of my mortgage off of something that I am already doing. I'm living somewhere.
Yeah.
So just these are things that you may not think about that I've done.
Yeah,
And
that's
is it
awesome.
some of that stuff is residual income? I mean, my renting part of my house is pretty much residual unless there's something that needs to be fixed or if I have to find a new tenant.
Yeah, that's passive for
That
sure.
comes in, yeah, passive. That's the word I went, not residual. Um, then some of these network marketing companies are somewhat passive but you still have to work the business.
Yeah.
And so there's just so many things. And the thing that is important is that on the first, I also have another list that is the 15, and I haven't given that out to anybody yet, but I have a list of the 15 pitfalls that you need to avoid when starting a side hustle. Top on that list is choosing the right side hustle. That's something that I
Mm,
can help you do if you are looking to start a side hustle.
that's critical. I just to reiterate the importance of that. I heard a statistic, and frankly, I lived this statistic in my own entrepreneurial journey. They say, and Alex Hormozy talks about this too, that you will start and fail 5 to 7 businesses before you find the one that is yours that you're going to ride with. And I think that if you can really learn how to evaluate the business opportunities that are out there, what your skill sets are, what you already like, what you already enjoy, what's already going to be in your wheelhouse of passions, I think I think just this is might be my own brain just thinking you'll probably reduce the amount of failures because you'll have a very clear idea of what you're looking for, and you'll be able to say no thank you to the ones that you might have said yes to, but
Yeah.
because you got clear on what you wanted, you went through your list and yours, what do you need, what do you want, what do you do already, and what are you passionate about, what are you, that's a great way to start, because then you're gonna accelerate that learning curve, and maybe you start and fail 2 or 3 businesses instead of 5 to 7 or 8. I think I counted one time, and it was at least half a dozen businesses that I started before I found the niche of financial planning and services that I loved, and it's crazy. And that's a really good thing that you just said, that you want to find the thing that you're passionate about and that you can really do well and monetize, and that's going to give you the highest percentage of success.
Well,
That's
and
awesome.
and with me, I want to fit you in your box, not in the cookie cutter box that you talk about, where
Yeah.
you have to fit in their box. And I'm not saying if you fit in their box, that's great. But
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying, fit in your box and do something that you love. My best friend, his wife started out teaching piano lessons when her kids were younger, and she started out teaching piano lessons while they were napping. Then when they got older and they were doing things, she found herself spending more time with other people's kids than her kids. So she
Interesting.
switched her side hustle to calligraphy. She could do calligraphy at the table and still listen to her kids and what how their day was and spend time with her family and not have to spend time with other people's kids. So even though you have one thing that you're fit in one box at one point, doesn't mean you're going to fit there the whole time. And so she changed to another box that she fit in better as circumstances changed.
Well, I think that just proves the point that anybody can be entrepreneurial and anybody can find a way to add extra income to their life. And I think that's powerful. Bart, do you mind if we end with that? That, you know what? I think of the old Ratatouille movie, anyone can cook. And the idea is that anyone can create a side hustle. If you have the right mentorship, if you have the right ideas and you understand how business works, you can actually be very successful and find some way to supplement your income or even replace your main income and be able to have the time freedom that you want. I think just to end with my own insights, no matter how much money you make sure that you're saving a significant portion of it. Make sure that you're putting aside money for taxes, especially if you're a business person. make sure you're putting aside money for those rainy days. Make sure maybe you have a broken leg fund or an amputated leg fund, like you, or whatever you want to call it, because things are going to, or the whatever happens whenever, the what happens when whatever happens fund. I think those are just some great insights and resources. Bart, that's
Because
your,
these things aren't cheap.
yeah, prosthetics are not cheap, even with insurance. That's true. Bart, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me and my audience. And I'm gonna, I hope you guys got a lot out of this. I hope that you'll take time to learn how to turn your income into wealth. I hope you'll take time to learn how to increase your income after you've disciplined your expenses and learn to live within your means. Make sure that you take time over the next week to grow your massive bank account. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.